no phone call.
Oh, no.
Hi, you've reached David Basner. Leave your name and number. Ready? It's Max Basner, your father. I thought you'd like to know your mother left me today.
What?
Life's been good to David Basner.
Would it be possible afterwards to have a drink?
No, it wouldn't.
Hey, is my nose bleeding? Huh? I just got tagged.
He's managed to become a success.
Basner's the new creative director. He's good.
And I wear bikini briefs.
Without becoming an adult.
You're just,
Oh, childish, immature, and selfish? That's right, I am. Do you know how much money I make for thinking this way?
It is economically unsound to grow up. You're right.
But what happens when a guy who never grew up
So, Mom left.
Do you see anyone else here?
has to adopt his parents?
Mom, why don't you put on your shoes and come out of the cage? Put it back. Put it back. Shame on you.
I was going to get rich and move into a luxurious mansion, and my parents were going to come and visit me once. And they were going to say, oh, what a nice mansion. We love you, David. And I was going to say, I love you too, Mom and Dad. Then they were going to go away and die.
I know you hate me, but you have to help me.
I've heard from you 3 times this year. Dad wants Merry Christmas, once give me hockey tickets, and now once your mother has left me.
I know you want to leave. What have you got, a blonde on the other pillar? Seduced and abandoned.
Look closely, girls. This is what you want to avoid later in life.
I mean, I didn't leave because of the yelling. I left because of the silence.
So she's not coming back. Who the hell needs her?
Babysitting your father will drive you crazy in a week, you know.
Tomorrow I'm doing a commercial about a family that cares for each other, loves each other. I'm faking it. They're driving me crazy.
When showing your love is the last thing you need,
Do you hate me for that?
I do not hate you. You're my mom.
why is it always the first thing you do?
You're the last person I thought would ever come through for me.
TriStar Pictures presents a Raystar production of a Gary Marshall film. It's a comedy and a drama, just like life.
You better not be bluffing.
Dad, I need $28,000 to pay off a gambling debt, or else I'm a dead man.
You've been a constant embarrassment ever since your mother and I brought you home that day from the orphanage.
I am not adopted.
I know, but please allow me that little fantasy.
Old pal, I've got to take a place on this plane. You see, some very dangerous and primitive people are after me, and I have no money and I have nowhere to run.
Lawrence Bourne III joined the Peace Corps. Not to save the world, but to save his own skin.
So this is hell.
Tom Tuttle, Tacoma, Washington.
In a week, I'll have that town running like Pittsburgh!
Volunteers.
Yeah, that's right. Rich American, huh?
It's not that I can't help these people, it's just that I don't want to.
You mean you've just been trying to go to bed with me?
Well, I think I put in the hours, don't you?
Their mission
We will build bridge.
is goodwill, progress,
What did I say?
Move this log and I'll sleep with each one of you. Blackjack is the game.
free enterprise,
Place your bets.
diplomacy,
I'm gonna go. You know where you are. I'm in the clutches of the angry pink menace. You will be educated. That will be a challenge. The enemy of the people are all those in league with imperialism. That bridge is important to us. Yes.
Opium is money. The bridge mean more traffic. Time is money.
You said opium was money.
Money is money.
Well, then what is time again?
America! America!
The People's Army must become one with the people.
We'll show those warmongers we'll just blow the bridge to bits.
What have I done?
How's this gonna look on my resume? Who's gonna hire me?
volunteers. One did,
I'm back! Whoa!
one didn't.
Thailand.
Tom Hanks, John Candy, volunteers.
Well, there we are. The trailers for two Tom Hanks films that you may not have seen from the 1980s as his star was on the rise. He was already becoming the next big thing by 1985. But this is his pre-Saving Private Ryan career. This is his comedy career. This is where Steve Guttenberg predominantly got stuck and Tom Hanks was able to graduate into more serious roles. And, of course, now he's directing and producing and that kind of thing. Welcome to The Inside Man.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Well, I thought I was going to be doing this stream on my own. So it's an absolute bonus to have you. I know you've seen one of the films, but you haven't seen the other one. Should we perhaps start with the one that you haven't seen?
Yeah, not a bad idea actually. Yeah, I mean, I would like to know a little bit more about it. So I think, considering that that you have seen it, I'd like to be enlightened and hopefully, sort of prompted to go out and grab a copy and have a good old watch.
I think of the two films, it's the stronger of the two. Although I do, first of all, I'll just say from the outset, cards on the table. I'm a huge fan of Tom Hanks. I followed his career since I saw him in Bachelor Party, a film he probably would prefer to forget. That was screened as a double bill in 1984, way before I was old enough to go and see it. It was an 18, and it was screened as a double bill with Revenge of the Nerds, the first Revenge of the Nerds film, which was a 15. And me and my friend were determined that we were going to go and see these movies, and he was very tall and I was pretty tall, so we blagged it and we got in. And we were not old enough to see these movies, but these were this is a PG and a 15. They both had cinema releases in the UK, but Nothing in Common had a proper cinema release. Volunteers was in and out pretty quick. I think I caught Volunteers on video, but we'll deal with Nothing in Common first. So Nothing in Common, though, I'll just do the story first. I mean, basically, we can. It's really a sort of. I guess it's almost like a bit of a midlife crisis movie in some ways. It's a straight up drama comedy, or dramedy as some people call them now. Tom Hanks plays the character of I think it's his name's Basner, but I forget the character's first name. Let me just get a full cast list up on another screen here so I can make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. And he's a success. He's just been promoted. He's just got the sort of top job of advertising executive. He now gets an advertising agency. He's now going to get the big accounts. He might be made partner. So things are really looking up for him. David Basner is the character that he plays. He's got a son who he's got no kids. He's got a father who's played by the late Jackie Gleason, who has been a salesman all his life. And Jackie Gleason's character, Max Basner, is very much the Willy Loman of the piece. He's like Willy Loman from Death of a Salesman. He's kind of out of time. He sells clothing ranges to children's clothing ranges, predominantly to department stores, and his lines are sort of starting to tail off. They're not really selling anymore. At one time, he was the top salesman. And the plot really revolves around this: is that David Basner has become quite successful. He's kind of moved away. He doesn't see his parents very often. Occasionally speaks to them on the phone. But his mother, who's played by Eva Marie Saint, fantastic actress. We'll probably see her in a sec. She leaves the father, and we don't know why that's happened, and we don't know why that's happened for quite a bit of the film. and the father's eyesight is going. He has a car accident, and it turns out there's also some other things wrong with him, so his health is beginning to fail. The mother has decided she wants a completely new life without him, and she's going to start dating again and things like this. So he's suddenly kind of like he's an advertising executive who never really had to grow up, and suddenly now he has to become almost like a parent to both of his parents, really. And that's the main plot about the parental relationship, particularly with his dad. The subplot involves him landing a huge contract. There are two subplots. One is with Darlene Fugel, who's his ex-girlfriend, who's a drama teacher. There's a really funny scene where you get to see her drama class in action. Darlene Fugel was the love interest in Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
So here she is in the still on the left. She is sadly no longer with us. Passed away a few years ago. Here she is again. So when they're talking about the just outside of her drama class, and there's Eva Marie Saint, who plays the mother. So the other subplot revolves around him getting this contract to advertise an airline. It's very much like American Airlines, and him and his team have to come up with all kinds of funny ideas for a commercial. And the funniest scene in the movie is definitely a compilation of their ideas, where they're sort of pitching all their different ideas. If I was going to show a clip of the film, I would show that one. I've shown it at various movie quizzes. In fact, I might show that at the quiz in July. And he starts a relationship with the daughter of the owner of the airline. Not really to land the contract. He does actually like her, but she beds him really at the behest of her father to see if he's the right man for the contract, to see if he's the right man to do the advert. So they are kind of a family of cougars in every sense. Hector Elizondo, who I absolutely love, this actor. Can't tell you how much I love this actor. He plays Charlie Gargus. He's Tom Hanks's boss. And he's going through a midlife crisis because he's losing his hair. So there's a subplot around him having to wear a toupee for the first time, which is quite fun. But he's also just a great. He's like the boss you want to have. He's like kind of on Basner's case to get the advert done, to seal the deal, get the contract. But then when Basner's father becomes ill, he's there for him, and he's like, I lost my dad. You've got to spend time with your parents. This is Barry Corbin, who's the guy that runs the airline. You may remember him from War Games. He plays the American general. I'd piss on the spark plug if I thought it would do any good. I used to have that still because I had a set of stills for this movie. Yeah, and then I think this is Bess. I want to say this is Bess Armstrong on the right. I think. Right. Actress that's been in some great roles. So I'll get into some spoilers later, but basically there's Seal Award. So basically you got two plots. One revolves around him connecting with his father, trying to repair the relationship between his mum and dad, which is beyond repair, and the other one is sealing the deal to get the advert. And then they've got to actually produce the advert. So you have the whole plot of them producing the advert. Dan Castanella is in the movie, who is one of the voices of many characters on The Simpsons. He's part of the advertising executive team in the film. And you've got John Kapilos, who plays the janitor in The Breakfast Club. He's in there. He's an actor I'm trying to actually get on the channel if I can. There's Eva Marie Saint again. The film was directed by Gary Marshall, who also, I think he was involved in either producing or directing Big. I forget which job he did on Big, but this film was a couple of years before Big. Yeah. And I have a feeling that might be Penny Marshall in that picture with him. I have a feeling. And again, this is on set. Now, one of the things that Hanks has said is that Jackie Gleason, who of course was a huge American star, he said that Jackie Gleason really took him under his wing, and he said he learnt more off of Gleason than any other actor he'd ever worked with up to that point.
Yeah, that's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, imagine having Gleason as a mentor. You know, the two of them did really bond. Now I'll whack my camera on for a second because I actually have. Let me stop this for a minute. I've got the vinyl soundtrack to the movie here.
But of course you have.
Of course I have. I don't have it for Volunteers, even though Volunteers is a James Horner soundtrack, and the soundtrack to Volunteers is really good. I don't.
It is good, yeah.
But do you know this has still got that kind of like that R Price kind of smell? Do you remember that smell?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Price?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's man, I've got to get a vinyl record player so I can play these things. And it's quite funny because sometimes when you buy an album, for whatever reason, they would have this little indent in the top. Do you see that? Yeah, I never know why that happened. Not sure what that's about.
No idea.
But there used to be a shop that sold nothing but soundtracks in Soho, and that shop was called 58 Dean Street Records. Is one of their bags, and it was owned by two brothers, and all it sold was soundtracks, musicals, films, and they had one section where it was new soundtracks. And when I discovered that shop, I realized this was the only shop in London that imported American soundtracks that weren't normally released in the UK. They all had the imports, and that's how I got things like the vinyl soundtrack to Invasion USA, which was, you know, not in the R Price top 20 albums that year. Yeah, so it's a good soundtrack. It's got music by the Thompson Twins, Richard Marx, Carly Simon. If It Wasn't Love at All is kind of the main love song which played in the trailer. You've got Aretha Franklin on there. There's I wish there was more of the instrumental music on the soundtrack. There's only, I think, 2 tracks of the actual you know, sort of instrumental score. I always preferred instrumental scores over, you know, 8 to 10 random songs, although
me too.
In the case of Footloose, I'll make an exception. Hey Tom, good to see you. I'll get this out of the way early. I have 2 things in common with Tom Hanks. We're both called Tom and both support the mighty Aston Villa. Good for you, sir. Good for you. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. So do share the stream. Yeah, so why do I like this movie? A number of reasons why I like this film. One is you can already see, I mean, he's got nowhere near the range that he'll come to have later, but you can already see in this film, at this stage, just how strong an actor Hanks is. It's there already. And I haven't seen. I'd seen Jackie Gleason in a couple of things. I can't remember if he was in It's a Mad, Mad World, but he's been in a couple of like older films like that I would have caught him in. But I never really. He was quite a sort of loud, brash, in-your-face actor. Who played very sort of big parts. He was a bit like Rodney Dangerfield. He had that same big presence, and that works for certain kinds of roles and certain kind of parts. In this film, what's really nice is it gives him a chance to play something that's like a shadow of that kind of person, like the person who was that kind of person but has run out of steam because their health has now got the better of them.
Yeah.
And you know, and the subplot between the parents' breakup and why they've fallen out of love with each other. And they have Jackie Gleason and Eva Marie Saint have a fantastic scene together where they talk about why they've fallen out of love. And that scene is fucking heartbreaking. It's really good, but it's heartbreaking. And I remember one of the lines Gleason has was, I wanted, you know, he's kind of basically what he's trying to say to her is he wanted her to be a porn star in the bedroom, but that's not the line. The line is something like, you know, I wanted you to do like new things, exciting things. I wanted to keep it fresh. And she says, well, I was waiting for you to teach me. And I was just sort of like, you know, that line was killer. It was killer.
Yeah.
Because sort of obviously he was too dismissive. He was too impatient. Yeah, man. So the relationship, the scenes with the two of them really work. Even Marie Saint, by the way, is still alive, and she is 99 years of age.
Oh, fantastic!
99.
Wow,
and
that's incredible.
I mean, do you know what? I might see if I can find a relative of hers or something and get them to send her this video, because she is amazing in this film. She's so good. And she's an actor with a huge body of work.
Yeah.
You know, she's been born in 1924, started acting in the 40s, various TV shows. She was in On the Waterfront.
Yeah,
with Marlon Brando. Yeah. She's the main female lead. She's the main female lead in North by Northwest with Alfred Hitchcock. So, you know, and then she was in films like The Russians Are Coming with Norman Jewison, How the West Was Won, stuff like that. And then she played the mother of Sybil Danning in Moonlighting. So she went on to, you know, she had a really big career. And also was in Superman Returns, which was the first attempt to kind of reboot Superman after the passing of Christopher Reeve. But
she's of that generation of staggeringly beautiful actresses that were incredibly talented.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What's actually nice about her, I'm just going to get her Wikipedia page up, is she got married in 1956, and as we know, the success rate of marriages with people who have long-term Hollywood careers is not very high. In fact, it's extremely small. And here's a studio portrait of her. I imagine that's probably when she's in her 20s. Yeah, she was married to her husband. There's a great photo of them here. Here it is. They got married in the 50s, I think 1951, and they were together right up until his death in 2016.
Wow.
That's incredible. What an achievement.
It really is. Yeah.
I think for anyone for a relationship to last that long is nothing short of amazing in this as a background. So that storyline all really works. But also the subplot around this is when they have out their argument here, but the subplot around landing the advertising contract, that whole subplot also really works. And actually the story with Hector Elizondo and him coming to terms with him losing his hair, and at one point he's in he meets David Basner at a swimming pool, and he dives into the pool because he's just had this new wig put on, and he's saying, so how do I look in it, David? And Hanks, who's playing David Basner, goes, well, I don't know, it's floating over there. Which is really funny. Canoli Sasquatch loves this film. Yeah, it's a really underrated movie. The scene where they're coming up with the ideas for the advertising campaign for the airline for this guy Barry Corbin is really funny. Well, I'm not looking for Eva Marie Saint's family to assist me in any way. I would just like her to know that she's just very well thought of, and especially I always liked this film. Because this film wasn't a big success. It was, I mean, it did okay, but it wasn't massively financially successful. It had a budget of 12 million. It took 32 million at the box office.
That's not bad.
No, it did all right. It did all right. But you know, I just don't think a lot of people, particularly in the UK, really saw it. Because Hanks wasn't a household name yet.
No, you're right. He wasn't the draw that we know.
Yeah, people knew who he was. People knew who he was, but don't forget he hadn't done Big yet. Big was the first, even though Big's a comedy. That's really Hanks's. When you think about it, that's really his first proper, deep, serious acting role.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because it's not easy to play, those nuances of being a child as an adult.
Yeah.
The way he did, and I mean, I'm going to do a stream about Big another time, but yeah. So for me, all the story elements work. Tonally, it's pretty good. I think the subplot around him and his ex-girlfriend is a little bit undernourished. Oh, is she played by Bess Armstrong? Okay, I thought she was Darlene Fugel. That I must have got them mixed up. My apologies. That's me getting that wrong. They do look really similar. I always thought it was Darlene Fugel in this role, but that's actually Bess Armstrong.
Right. Okay.
So my apologies. Yeah, I'll double check that on the IMDb, but I thought this lady was Bess Armstrong, but no, I was wrong. So it's not Darlene Fugel. Bess Armstrong is still around. So my apologies. I do get them mixed up. I have got them mixed up before. So, oh dear, showing myself up live on YouTube.
No.
But I mean, yeah, that plot is, and it's no fault of Bess Armstrong. She's a very talented actress. It's just a little bit undernourished. I only get a couple of scenes really, and the implication is that he's probably going to end up back with her. Celia Ward, who he kind of has the other romance with, that totally is believable. They have amazing chemistry. And here she is, very beautiful woman, very talented actress. The fact that she's kind of really at the behest of her father and securing what's required for the contract is pretty cool. You will have seen her in a lot of things. She's in Westworld. She's got a recurring character in the FBI TV series. She was in the terrible sequel to Independence Day as the president. Just best not mention that.
Yeah.
And of course was a recurring star on Once and Again, 63 episodes throughout the turn of the millennia. So it's a good film. I definitely recommend it. I can't understand the low rating that this movie has on IMDb.
I mean, I would actually put that down to the fact that this film is evidently one of those 80s films that came out in that sort of block, where the lead character would be an advertising executive or a Wall Street banker or a hotshot lawyer kind of thing. There was that kind of theme. The lead was always one of those. And I don't know, there seems to be a little bit of a bit of repellence against some of the 80s slightly more capitalist type movies, that show that sort of overt capitalism that we had in the 80s. I think there is that a little bit of snarkiness, I think, against some of these films, which I think is unnecessary.
I mean, it did come out in the middle of the 80s. That was kind of a time of loads of money and all of that, and
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to work at an advertising firm, if I remember rightly. That's apparently that's where the big bucks were to be made. I nearly went down that route myself. I kind of wish I had. But yeah, good film. I mean, I'm not sure where people would watch it. Is it on YouTube for free? I'm not sure. It's highly likely it may well be. But I dare say people can track it down. I have a hard copy of it, of course. I used to own it on VHS. I've got a DVD of it. I don't have it on Blu-ray. I don't know if it's available on Blu-ray. But it's a lot of fun. It's a good film. I probably rate it 8 out of 10 because it does what it says on the tin. I don't think it was marketed particularly well. I think the trailer that we saw at the beginning of the stream, you could if you sat down with a really good editor, you could cut a much better trailer for this. You know, they make it sound sort of almost kind of very twee and whimsical, but it's actually, there's a lot more to it than that. And you could cut 2 trailers for it. You could cut one trailer and make it seem like quite a serious film.
Yeah.
You could easily cut another trailer for it and make it seem like a complete comedy.
Yeah.
But it is a comedy drama. It's got some very sad, poignant stuff. The other thing that is interesting about it is that Jackie Gleason knew he was dying when he made this film. He knew he was dying. He died in June of 87. And Nothing in Common was shot. I think it was shot in 85 to 86. And he knew this was probably going to be his last. His last movie. And I'll double check, but I think it was his last. It's a massive career here. I'm just scrolling through all his credits. But I think it was his last film. Yes, it was Nothing in Common, 1986. And he did I think he did a TV special, Gleason in His Own Words, in February of 86. I don't think he did anything in 87. And so I think he felt on a bound to look to sort of guide Hanks in a way. So just as on Wikipedia here, Gleason delivered a critically acclaimed performance as an infirm, acerbic and somewhat Archie Bunker-like character in the Tom Hanks comedy drama Nothing in Common, Gleason's final film role. During the production, he was diagnosed with colon cancer, which had metastasized to his liver, and he already was suffering from phlebitis and diabetes. He kept his medical problems private, although there were rumors that he was seriously ill. So I think Hanks knew, and it might well be that he either guessed or that they had private conversations about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that Gleason's daughter married actor playwright Jason Miller, and their son is Jason Patrick, actor Jason Patrick.
Wow.
Well, so Jason Patrick is a descendant of Jackie Gleason. Now, I never knew that.
Wow. So what, Jackie Gleason is his grandfather?
Yes.
Wow.
Gleason's daughter Linda became an actress and married playwright Jason Miller, who passed away in 2001, so he's no longer with us. And they had a son, Jason Patrick. Yeah. Wow. So he died away, passed from a heart attack. Best friends with actor Paul Sorvino. Oh. So there you go.
That's quite something.
Yeah. So it's got that. I mean, I think Gleason probably threw everything into the role, and you can see that in the performance. It got mixed reviews when it came out, which I I think it's a shame. A lot of people praised the work of Gleason and Hanks in the film, but just sort of said that the film was kind of missing a lot. I don't know that's true. I mean, they could have actually done a pretty good sequel if they'd shot it straight away. Some people didn't like Hector Elizo's performance. I thought he was great. I've never seen him give a bad performance. That's bollocks.
Yeah. I don't get that at all, and I don't buy that either.
No,
I mean he's one of those stalwart, character actors that you know exactly what you're going to get from him.
Yeah, and I mean, all of his scenes in this are fabulous. And it's quite sort of sweet when the mother starts dating somebody else, and actually the actor that she ends up dating is, I think, Mike Haggerty, who he was in Code of Silence with Chuck Norris. He's kind of quite a well-known sort of little character actor, plays a lot of cops.
Yeah.
If it's the guy I'm thinking of, or it might have been, hang on, let me just check. Is it Ron Dean? Oh no, I'm thinking of Ron Dean. I'll show you him, and you'll know him immediately. So that if we look at the cast list here, the mother ends up. So Mike Haggerty, he's one of the other people on the team, on the advertising team. Dan Castaneda and Kapelos are both on the advertising team. The mother ends up dating this guy. I think they probably had some dialogue scenes, but it was cut. Ron Dean. He always plays cops. He always plays kind of cops. He's briefly in The Breakfast Club. He's Emilio Estevez's father. When he drops him off.
Right, okay, yeah.
And he's got that kind of dominating presence when he picks him up. He's a very good character actor, is Ron Dean. Very good character actor. Tom here is saying, who's definitely not Tom Hanks. I don't know much about Gleason, but loved him in The Hustler. So, I don't know. In The Hustler with Paul Newman.
Yeah.
God, he was in that, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, yeah.
Yeah. So, so I give Nothing in Common a solid 8. I personally loved it. I remember when I saw it, I had just broken up with my first girlfriend, and that song, If It Wasn't Love at All, What Were All Those Feelings, proper kicked me in the ghoulies. Like right in there's a big montage in the middle of the film with that song playing.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there in the cinema, and I had this whopping great big tear come rolling down my cheek when that song was on. I'll never forget that. So I think that's probably nothing else to say. I'm just checking to see if there's any interesting bits of trivia that I've missed about the movie. But I don't
I've
think
got to be honest. I mean, you kind of prompted me to really want to, watch this and maybe have a little bit of a nostalgia trip for some of these, similar kinds of 80s movies. Look, not all of them were great. A lot of them were bad. But if anything, they were pretty fun. They weren't offensive movies. They were what they were. This one, considering the pedigree that's actually in this, let alone, even if you take Tom Hanks out of the picture, with a great supporting cast and surrounded by other brilliant character actors, I think it's very, very difficult to go wrong with that.
There's quite an interesting story here, which is a good sort of way to end on before we move on to volunteers. Rumor has it that director Gary Marshall would not go ahead with the making of the film without the inclusion of Jackie Gleason.
Right.
In poor health, Gleason had grown tired of filmmaking, wished to retire from the business. After several attempts to get him on board, Marshall finally called Gleason on the phone and insisted that if he didn't do the film, that the last film he'd be remembered for was the box office bomb Smokey and the Bandit 3. Yeah, that was the one without Burt Reynolds in, which was total turds. Gleason immediately accepted the offer on the condition that this would be his last acting roles. In Mr. Marshall's memoir, My Happy Days in Hollywood, he credits Ray Stark with asking Gleason the question about if he wanted Smoking the Bandit 3 to be how he would remember. Who's Ray Stark? Ray Stark. Ray Stark was a scriptwriter and producer who worked on things like he produced Annie, Steel Magnolias, Lost in Yonkers, The Toy, various other things. California Suite. That's a great film.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago.
You did?
That I watched it, and boy, what a fantastic rewatch that was.
Right. Yeah, that's one we've got to sit down and do a breakdown on.
Yeah.
Is that now? Which is the film with Walter Matthau?
Yeah.
When he's trying to persuade his daughter to come out the bathroom of the hotel, the daughter's about to get married, and again, it's definitely one of the Neil Simons, but I can't remember if it's that one.
No, it's not that one. The California Suite is where his brother he goes to LA. I think it's for his nephew's bar mitzvah, and of course his brother gets him a little bit, let's just say, tipsy, and he hires a prostitute for him, and of course this prostitute sort of passes out on the bed. Right. And his wife she just turns up at the hotel, and he starts to really panic, and he tries to, he puts her in the bathroom and then tries to drag her out, and in the end he has to sort of come clean and tell her exactly what's happened. But the kind of panic that Walter Matthau actually sort of oozes in that scene is fantastic. I mean, it's exactly how I would panic.
I've got to watch it. Keith is saying it's not available anywhere for free. So, guys, if you want to find the film, you may have to hunt around for it. But it's definitely worth your time. Just give a shout out to the writers, because I forgot to do that. Written by Rick Podell, who is still around. And just looking at his other credits, he's a writer on American Dad, which is a show I absolutely love. Yeah. Various other things there. Television, Bold and Beautiful, Matlock, LA Law, Fame, The Jeffersons, etc., etc., etc. So this would probably did 2 episodes of The $6 Million Man. So a jobbing writer.
Wow.
Gary Marshall also credited, I assume, because he did rewrites. Michael Preminger, who appears to be more of a feature film writer. He did In the Nick of Time, not Nick of Time, which is a movie we've definitely got to review. So only a few credits from him. Looks like he changed jobs. He's still around, according to IMDb. All right. So Nothing in Common. I highly recommend it. We will move on to volunteers then. And here we are. You don't have to move on very far. Now, I covered this film in some detail recently because one of my guests was actor Tim Thomason, who is in the movie. And I mean, this is a much, much lighter fare. Let me break down the plot, and then we'll talk about it. And of course, you've just watched it. You've seen it before, but you've just watched it again.
Yeah, just rewatched it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the basic plot is Tom Hanks plays, I think it's his character name, if I remember rightly, is Lawrence Basner III, something like that.
Yeah.
He's basically a rich kid who's supported by his dad, doesn't want for anything, but has a gambling addiction. It's Lawrence Bourne III. Spoiled kid who's just graduated from Yale. This film is set in the 60s, 1962, so before the Vietnam War has started in its earnest, and he has a $20,000 gambling debt. He refuses to pay the debt, and he escapes the villains who are sort of chasing after him for the money. and manages to trade places with his college roommate Kent, jumping on a Peace Corps flight to Thailand, and he impersonates his college roommate. On the plane, on the way there, he meets two characters, Tom Tuttle, who is played by John Candy, Tom Tuttle from Tacoma, Washington. And he also meets a beautiful down-to-earth girl called Beth Wexler, who is played by Rita Wilson, who, of course, is now Mrs. Hanks. And this is actually the film where they got together, which has been confirmed by John Candy, who confirmed it to Tim Thomerson, who confirmed it to us. So we have that as second-hand knowledge from a very reliable source. Yeah. So when they get to Thailand, they're basically assigned by this guy who sort of looks after them, called John Reynolds, who's played by Tim Thomerson, who may or may not be secretly working for the Air America type situation. And they're assigned to this village where they're going to build a bridge for the local villagers. The idea being that it will bring commerce to the village. It will make it easier for the villagers to cross the river. Unfortunately, two different people want to get their hands on the bridge, communist forces that are nearby, and also a powerful drug lord called Chung Mi, who wants them to finish the bridge even quicker for his own ends. In the meantime, the self-entitled Lawrence Bourne III becomes enamored with Beth. They have a bit of a romance sort of storyline. Tom Tuttle is kidnapped by the communists. He proclaims, "You'll never change, you'll never turn me." And then we kind of have a wipe, and he's already dressed up in a communist uniform, and he's quoting all the communist doctrine. And he quotes it to the point that he's kind of annoying his captors, that he's even more dedicated to the cause already than they are, which I thought was a really good running gag with him. Ultimately, this sort of culminates in there's a bit of a rescue mission because Beth gets kidnapped. It turns out that John Reynolds, Tim Thomerson's character, is not all he claims to be. Quite a funny subplot involving a story with a statue with a rather oversized peni. And this all culminates at the village with the bridge. There's a bit of a scrap, and ultimately the bridge has to be destroyed in order to save the village. You've got supporting characters played by the likes of Xander Berkeley, George Plimpton, who plays Lawrence Bourne's dad, and Geddy Watanabe, who plays at Toon, who at the time was a character that we were seeing in all kinds of things, like 16 Candles. He played a recurring role on ER. He was in the film Gung Ho with Michael Keaton, which is a film I need to revisit, actually, and various other things. And he also appeared on Sesame Street and a whole host of other bits and pieces. Still a working actor. Thomerson told us quite a few stories about the production, which I'll come on to in a bit. I seem to recall that this is one that me and my friend Paul Wilkins, we rented out on video. And in fact, I think that was the video cover that we had in the UK. And it, it's just a kind of, it's a very easy watch. It's not a great movie, but it's good enough, I think. It's directed by Nicholas Meyer, who gave us Wrath of Khan. So quite an unusual contrast. One of the people who produced it is producer Walter F. Parks, who is still going. Extremely well-respected producer in America.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Yeah, and he's to give you some of his credits. He's done Awakenings, the first Men in Black film, i.e. the good one, The Peacemaker, Minority Report, The Ring, The Terminal, Ring 2, The Legend of Zorro, The Kite Runner, The Uninvited. He's also unfortunately done all of the Men in Black sequels. He also has done Gladiator 2. He was an executive producer on Gladiator, The Mask of Zorro, Amistad, Deep Impact, Small Soldiers, which is a fun movie, and a whole host of others. He'd be a great person to interview if I could get him to come on. Music for the film is done by James Horner, who is my favorite composer of all time. The score is very good. It wasn't available in the UK, and I never saw the import, so that's why I didn't get it. And it's one of my favorite sort of John Candy performances that most people have never seen.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you mentioned this film to me, I mean, it took me quite a while to really kind of fathom out which movie it was. As soon as I saw the opening sequence and, we had the Blue Moon playing, I thought, I know this movie. Yeah, it's not a bad film. It's not a masterpiece.
No.
Although there are some quite fun little set pieces that do allude to some pretty spectacular masterpieces. There's a couple of little nods to David Lean in there.
Yeah, Lawrence of Arabia and
Yeah,
Bridge on the
and
River
Brewster,
Kwai.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, when everyone was was chanting Lawrence, Lawrence. I
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, right, okay. And the bit on the bridge where he turns around and says, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So there are some nice little nods there, some nice little gags. I actually thought I got a level. I thought the one person that really kind of dropped the ball on the delivery of the gags was actually Tom Hanks. I didn't like the voice that he adopted for this.
Yeah.
Tim Thomerson for me was the standout character.
He totally steals this film. Absolutely
Completely steals it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Candy really do steal this movie.
Yeah.
But Thomerson, we haven't seen Thomerson do a role like this before, where he's playing it straight but for laughs.
Yeah.
And he does it so well.
I think that's what really genuinely what makes him funny in the role. He's kind of this kind of mean, sort of brooding, moody character. And you just don't know where he's coming from until obviously we get the reveal. But yeah, he plays it with this slightly, psychotic edge that there's something quite
not quite right with him.
Yeah, it's a little bit unnerving.
Me and Mike. Who's Mike? Yeah. My knife. I was just hanging out with me and Mike on my own, talking to Mike.
But he's a bloody good actor.
Yeah, he's
a bloody good actor. Good. And he is one of those guys that whatever you see him in, that you've seen a good performance. He really is. He's always solid, I think.
He's one of the first actors whose career I followed. I remember sort of around this kind of time, actually slightly earlier than this, I started to sort of follow the careers of actors, and I would always look for their names in films. And it was more that it wasn't the Clint Eastwoods and the David Nivens and the people that I'd grown up with as a really tiny kid, because I knew who these people were.
Yeah,
I was like, that guy's good. And then I'd want to look for that guy or that girl in something else. And the people that fell into that category, and I can't remember the exact order, but I know Thomerson was probably first because Metal Storm. I saw that at the cinema, and I really liked him. I thought that guy's kind of got something. This sort of, and then it was him, Hanks, Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
I was already following Gene Hackman, but Kevin Bacon I followed from Footloose, and I watched it. Bacon did a whole string of movies before he had a big hit with Footloose, and then people kind of wrote him off as a dancer, which but not an actor. I actually think his acting performance in Footloose is really good. I think it's really overlooked, and he did a string of straight-to-video hits like Silverback or whatever the one was with the when they're on the racing bikes, like the delivery guys in New York.
Yeah.
That weren't particularly big hit movies, but he was always good.
Yeah.
So I would always rent those films out. Like Tom Hanks did, like The Man with One Red Shoe. That never got a cinema release in the UK, but I made sure I saw it because it was Tom Hanks. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, but you're right. I mean, those kind of actors at that period, it was a pretty good little sort of mini golden era. I think, we
yeah,
had a clutch of really good actors that we knew, or you could kind of tell that they were on the rise and rise.
yeah,
Um, but but um, but yeah, Tim Thomerson in this, even when he's not in the scene, he's kind of, that he's there. You know that there's,
yeah,
still kind of feel that he's actually in the movie. It's not like once his scenes are finished that's it, that character's disappeared. You always kind of almost feel him over your shoulder a little bit. But he's a bloody good actor.
I'm so gutted that me and him probably won't get to work together because he's, pushing, I think, nearly 79, 80 now. But he was so chuffed that I knew his career so intimately, and you could tell on the interview, and I was so glad that it was just pure chance that I happened to mention to a friend of a friend, damn, I just been trying to track down Tim Thomerson, really want to interview him while he's still around, and they were like, but he's my mate's best friend. I was like, really?
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember the little chain of
I think that happened around the time you were on a stream with me. I think I might have even got the message about it. Do you remember? I think
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I do recall. But it's a really good interview. It's anybody that's watching that hasn't seen it, you have to watch this interview. It's a really, really good interview with a fantastic actor, and well done you for pulling that one off. And like I say, fair play to you, mate. You really did a good job. You really, really did a good job.
Thank you.
And it's it's an absolute pleasure to watch. It really is.
Well, he told us a great story, which is quite funny, and I'm sure Hanks won't mind. That there was him, Candy, and Rita Wilson and Tom Hanks, and they would usually go out for dinner, and then they would go on to like a sort of bar, and often Candy I think he would go and play the piano or something, or they'd play cards or whatever. And Rita Wilson would always duck out early, saying she was tired, etc. And she had to go and learn her lines for the next day. And then 20 minutes later or so, Hanks would say, I'm going to go and learn my lines, and then so John Candy and Thomerson would be left at the bar, and Candy would sort of lean over to Thomerson going, you don't really think they're running their lines, do you? They're getting, they're a thing, and because Candy picked up on it really quickly, they basically became a couple, and they had met once before this. I think they'd worked on a TV show or something together. Candy's great in it.
I got a level, seeing her actually in this. I thought she was pretty smoking, to be honest with you. I thought she was really cute.
Yeah, well, Tom Hanks clearly thought so.
Yeah.
Well
done, Tom.
This character, I thought, is kind of nuts. It's almost like she's stepped out of Big Trouble in Little China. Although
I thought that.
This was made before. This was made before that. She has like these really long killer nails, and then they have this running gag with her, which is very un-PC, that she speaks with a massive lisp and accent. So Hanks's character Lawrence is constantly misquoting what she says, which probably doesn't hold up as well today as but this is the drug dealer. But and the guy on the right is the guy who still acting today. It's Geddy Watanabe. And he is he voices the character of Ling in the animated film Mulan, which a lot of people would probably know. It's not one of my favorites of Disney, I have to say, but he's done loads of things, still acting. Yeah. Xander Berkeley has a really small role in the movie as well, who's an actor that I really, really like. And I have spoken to him, actually. Yeah, and I think that's Hanks's love interest at the beginning, or Lawrence's love interest, and it's the girl that sort of he's dating. This guy's good. He plays off Candy pretty well, because that's when he's the one who converts Candy to a communist.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of this actor. I think it's Clyde Kusatsu, I believe.
Yeah.
Who's a character actor. He is still around. He's still going.
That's pretty good.
Last thing he did was an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. He's one of the voices on Blue-Eyed Samurai, which you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
Done episodes of Days of Our Lives, done various Pokemon things. He's got 317 acting credits on IMDb. Wow. 317.
That's
pretty
not impressive.
I mean, for an Asian character actor, which I mean, back in the day, you'll be fighting for the same parts on Hawaii Five-0. He must be a very well-liked man in the industry. Other things that he's done that I've seen are 47 Ronin. He's done loads of TV, Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, Scooby-Doo Incorporated, Hawaii Five-0. He was a judge in Hawaii Five-0. Yeah, he's been on the original series and the reboot, I think.
Wow, that's pretty good going.
Yeah, ER. Avatar: Last Airbender, previous incarnation, Hollywood Homicide, loads of animation credits, absolutely loads. Ally McBeal, a couple of episodes, Max Steel, Batman Beyond, American Pie, Greg and Dharma, Chicago Hope, Godzilla. So Pinky and the Brain.
Real jobbing actor, real proper, solid actor. Yeah.
But you know what? For someone to get that much work, he must be also extremely well liked. He'll have those people sort of saying, I like working with him. Let's get him in. He was also in And the Band Played On, which I was talking on Enzo's Big Gay Friendly stream last night. We talked about that. He was also in Rising Sun, In the Line of Fire,
right?
Hot Shots Part 2, Dragon, the Bruce Lee Story. These are all films that I saw when they were released. I remember him very clearly in And the Band Played On. I know exactly which scene he was in. Quite a few things. Yeah, I'm still going through his credits, man. I should get him on. He'd be great. He'd be a great guest.
What a coup that would be to get him on. Yeah. I mean,
he would be.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Well, I'll see if I can find him. I mean, his credits. I'm still going here. Rockford Files. So we're in the. He was in the original Hawaii Five-0 as well. So, and the Battle of Midway. He was in. So he was in that, the movie. First credit, Room 22, and then Ironside, Airport 1975. Kung Fu, 5 episodes of Kung Fu.
Yeah.
So, but they're good. Their scenes are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
John Candy's his character represents the naive Americans' view of what the Peace Corps should be.
Yeah.
Probably fair.
Yeah, I'd say it's a fair assessment.
This was all shot in Mexico, by the way.
Was it really?
Yeah, and I actually thought they probably did film it in Thailand. But
did I.
Yeah, it was actually all shot in Mexico. In Tuxtepec. The filmmakers built a Thai village based on the Karen people of Burma's Golden Triangle, building the world's longest wooden suspension bridge. Had a cast of 100 people from around the world, including Thai families. Spent 2.5 months filming there. Then Maya says The director of the Peace Corps, Sergeant Shriver, read the script and complained that it was like spitting on the American flag and demanded changes. The changes were never made, but by the time the film was released, Shriver was no longer the director and the Peace Corps were willing to endorse the movie. I don't think that the film... I don't think the film really has a go at the Peace Corps. It just
Not at all.
No, it doesn't. Because their aims were good. I think it just has a go at the naivete of trying to insert yourself into what you perceive as a simple fix, when in fact, once you peel the layers back, it's a very complicated situation.
Yeah.
But the tone of the film is entirely comedy.
Yeah.
The drama in it is pretty limited. The film serves comedy first, drama second. So it is a straight up comedy.
And it's nicely shot. It's actually very, very nicely shot.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
I like the actor that plays his dad. That's another actor.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Alan, I think it's let me just check his name. No, George Plimpton. That's right.
Yeah.
George Arthur Plimpton. Sadly, no longer with us. He must have been pretty old when he shot this. But he was a journalist known predominantly for sports writing, who got into acting quite late. Appeared in 30 films as an extra or in cameo appearances, including a Bedouin in Lawrence of Arabia, psychologist in Good Will Hunting, hosted Mousepiece Theatre, a Masterpiece Theatre spoof featuring Disney cartoon short. Shit, I remember him presenting that. Yeah. Grandfather of Dr. Carter on ER. I remember that as well because I was a massive ER fan.
I wouldn't remember that. My other half would know.
I'm huge. I tried so hard to get a job on ER when I was starting out. Plimpton was a classmate and a close personal friend of Robert F. Kennedy. So there you go.
Oh.
Pretty nuts.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And clearly very well thought of.
But it is it's not a bad film. I mean, as I say, it's not it's not Citizen Kane, but
no,
it does
silly comedy,
it does
really.
exactly what it says. Yeah. And I think it's nicely shot. The soundtrack, I think, is excellent. It's pretty well directed. Pretty well acted. The cast are pretty good. There are a few slightly uncomfortable, by today's standards, little kind of, racial jokes in there.
I think one of the reasons that they get away with those depictions is because a lot of the jokes in the film around the kind of the clash of culture topic are very much at the American characters' expense.
They are at their expense. You're right.
Like when they're Tom Tuckle's saying, "We're going to use this wood. This wood is very good for bridge," and he's like shouting like that's going to make the translation any easier. And then Tatoot's characters, "Hey, you American guy," and he sort of speaks English like he's learned it from watching TV or something. Use that word. That word's sacred for village. And and then
there was a line that Tom Hanks actually said to him. He turned around and he said, he says, "You're lying." He says, "I'm not lying." He says, "Where is she? You're lying. She wasn't taken." He says, "I can tell you're lying. Your eyes are starting to go more round."
I missed that.
Oh, yeah. I thought, oh,
yeah, that probably hasn't aged well.
Yeah. But did you think that they had a sound problem on this? Because it sounds like there was definitely no looping. I thought I kind of picked up immediately that didn't think there was any kind of post sync sound, that everything was shot on location and on set. And it kind of from the opening scene with the poker game, the sound was like really odd. It sounded like they, half the time they didn't have the correct mics there, and
that's interesting. I have a DVD of this movie, But I think the last time I watched it, I watched it online. And I don't remember. And I watched it pretty recently. I watched it about 2 months ago in preparation for this stream. I watch Nothing in Common usually once a year. I don't remember that. I don't remember thinking, oh, the sound's a bit ropey.
I don't know. As soon as we got into the, past the title credits and everything, and we got into the first scene with the poker game, it was very, it was very kind of recorded on set, and it just sounded like it was recorded with, some pretty poor quality mics. That maybe they didn't have the budget to do a lot of post syncing, a lot of looping.
The budget on the film, I think it was about 9. Hang on, I'll check it. I think it was about 9 or 10 million. Yeah, it was 10 million.
Okay.
The film made 19.8 million, was released on August 16th, 1985. TriStar. And TriStar were banging out a lot of good films around this time.
They were.
When their logo came up, I always thought this movie's going to be good. It's quite funny, it was kind of, they were the new company, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
At the time. And you
wasn't
had that
Columbia TriStar, wasn't it? And
because TriStar started out, either they bought out Columbia bought out them, I can't remember, because I remember the old Columbia logo that used to come up at the beginning of films, kind of a cool logo. And then it was no longer really Columbia TriStar, it was just TriStar. I don't know. TriStar still going? Not sure if they are.
Oh no, I bet they're long since gone. Like
everyone's always buying each other out. Let me. I'm curious to know. Actually, is TriStar Pictures? TriStar Pictures still going? Still around? What happened to TriStar Pictures? Oh shit! On 11th, I didn't realize they went this long ago. On the 11th of July, 1990, TriStar Pictures dissolved and sold its venture in Televentures to Stephen J. Cannell Productions. Yeah, he's a massive name. And became Cannell Distribution Company. Most of the series and the TriStar film packages that were distributed by Televentures were transferred to Columbia Pictures.
Right.
So, okay. So is Columbia still around?
I think they're still around. Were they bought by Sony?
They were bought by Sony. Sony buys everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I remember back in the mid 80s, around about sort of 86, I think it was, Coca-Cola bought Columbia. And they appointed David Putnam as their president.
Yeah, that went down like a fart in a spaceman's helmet. He was like super unpopular.
Oh dear.
Because he tried to
because he actually make movies.
Well, yeah, but didn't he sort of try to get them to just like make loads of art house films, and they were like, "Hang on a minute, we need to make some Hollywood shit too."
I think what it was. I think what it was. I think they tried to, he tried to, make real movies rather than, just sort of, standard sort of, Hollywood fare, standard slush.
Yeah.
To give them a degree of credibility. And some people would call them art house movies. I think the other executives at Columbia and the shareholders would have called them art house movies. Most people, including American audiences, would have called them good movies. But this kind of always goes back to the fact that there are so many people within the business that know nothing about movies. They think they do. They try to tell people they do, and they don't. And that's why people like David Putnam get shut down. And that's why, so many great movies are never made.
According to his Wikipedia page on the Columbia Pictures section, Putnam was chairman and CEO of Columbia Pictures from June 86 until September 87. There he oversaw a development of a 270 million film package that had 15 to 18 films for the first 2 years and a number of 15 films for the next 2 years. and handled in such acquisitions like The Big Easy and Spike Lee's low-budget feature School Days. He made a decision to drop big-budget films in favor of smaller features, a move that did not sit well with Coca-Cola and Hollywood, and decided to let deals with existing contracts expire. So, I guess...
yeah. I'll tell you one that actually ran out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that ran out. The original version of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Columbia, we're gonna be doing that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the casualties.
Right. I didn't know that Putnam Executive produced Bugsy Malone. I must have completely
I didn't know
overlooked
that.
Yeah, he did.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. The late great Alan Parker. He produced The Duelists, the first feature of Ridley Scott.
Yeah, Ridley Scott.
Midnight Express, of course. Chariots of Fire. The British Are Coming. Yeah. Took long enough.
That was. Do you remember it was Colin Welland's speech, wasn't it?
Yeah, Colin Welland's speech. The British are coming.
Yeah, the Brits are coming. Yeah, and
British are coming. Well, it might take us a while. It's just because it took ages before we had anything after that. And Colin Welland only wrote 2 other movies. He wrote Dancing Through the Dark. He had an acting role in Dancing Through the Dark. He wrote War of the Buttons, which, by the way, is a film I absolutely love. Amazing film, based on the French movie, which has been made about 3 times, about the 2 warring groups of kids, all set in Ireland. And Alan Marks did some special effects on it, believe it or not. He had to. Right. They had a scene where, I don't know if you've ever seen it, where they had all the kids charge down the hill and they're naked, and they had a preview screening for everybody, and kids' families were there. The mothers were like, don't want our boys showing their bits. And so they had to digitally put pants on them.
Yeah,
so they had to add underwear to the boys so that they weren't naked on that sequence, which was quite funny. But so Volunteers is I'd give it a 7 out of 10 from me. What would you?
With that. Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, 7 out of 10. Yeah.
Gordon Gekko sold TriStar. Gordon Gekko is not a real person. He's a fictional character, but you might be thinking of the person he is based on. There's the link for the Tim Thomerson interview. Thank you, Keith. Much
nice
appreciate
one,
that. Yeah, nice one.
Yeah.
On the ball, man. On the ball.
Yeah.
Darth Armour. Who's this? Hi, Lance. Does Mazes and Monsters get a mention? Oh my God. So, this might be Amma that I went to school with. Mazes and Monsters, fleshless films. Got all kinds of people popping in. I've noticed. Sorry about that. Mazes and Monsters was the first substantial acting role of Tom Hanks. Now, I believe the entire film is on. It was a made-for-television movie. I believe the entire film is on YouTube. It certainly was when I watched last time.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Mazes and Monsters trailer. Mazes and Monsters, and it's about a group of. Yes, the whole film is there. USA original. It's about a group of kids who get up, who play D&D. And this was at the time where there was a bit of a pushback to kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you'd get, religious groups sort of saying, "Oh, D&D is evil," this kind of thing. And this group of kids get together to play Dungeons and Dragons, but in a more atmospheric setting, and they actually do they do what we would call today live action role playing, where they dress up and they go and do this adventure in these caves and stuff like that. But Tom Hanks's character, there he is, gets too into it and starts seeing monsters for real. The plot is nonsense. I have to say this. It's nonsense. It was just sort of, this film was clearly produced by the kind of, we're scared about people playing D&D brigade. And I'll never forget that there was a scene where it was on a chat show. I can't remember which one it was, but you had various people from religious groups invited in to sort of bitch about D&D. And there's the scene at the end with Hanks. I mean, you could see he could act even in this, you know.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks crying face there. But you had all these religious bigots, I'm going to call them, because that's what they were, waxing their mantra in this studio. And there was a load of young people there, and one of the sort of goths, you know, put his hand up, and they said, "Yes, you, sir." And he said, "Well, let me just ask you a question. How many people have been killed because they've played a game of D&D in the world, and how many people have been killed in the name of religion?" And I just thought, that's the argument in a nutshell. Piss off, you know, let people play their hobby. Stop fucking waggling your finger and having a pop.
Yeah,
Absolute
it's
nonsense.
fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a bit of fun, you know, and you know, get over it.
You would much rather have your kids playing Dungeons and Dragons than being out there, you know, robbing cars and we would have got into all kinds of trouble if we hadn't started playing board games and doing role-playing games, because Amar and is this kid from school that I used to hang around with. We used to kind of like play like role-playing games where we would pretend we were on the Falklands, you know, because like the invasion had just happened and everybody was very sort of bash the Argies, and we're all going to join we're all going to join army cadets, and we're all going to go to the Falklands and fight. Couldn't believe we were even thinking about doing that, but you know, there was all of that going on, and we used to like run around hiding from cars, and we'd pick two spots and we'd start at one spot and we'd have to get to this place. That was the objective, and we're actually trying to evade it's after Stanley's been captured and we're trying to evade the Argentinians. And it was some older kid that I can't remember who he was. He was a friend of a friend who I kind of went along with them and played that game one night, and then I taught it to all the kids that I hung out with. But you know, basically what this involved was a bunch of kids looking highly suspicious, ducking behind people's walls and gardens and cars. And you know, that wouldn't cut mustard today. You'd get. I'll never forget the time we were all out really late at night, and you know, we saw a pair of headlights like right at the end of the street. And of course, it was like, it's a car, so we've got to avoid it. We've got to avoid this car. So we all dived into this driveway because it had the biggest bush. You know, it was like concealed us all. There was about 14 of us. And what are the chances? It was this bloke's fucking house, and he pulled into the drive, and there's this massive group of kids all hiding behind like these two dustbins. And I remember, to get out of there, what I did was I ran through the side bush, cut myself to ribbons, fell over this little low brick wall, fell into the garden next, and then to the next, and then to the next. And there was somebody had a fish pond in the front, which was quite rare. Normally have them in the back garden. I fell into the fish pond. They had like carp and shit in it, and then went into the next garden. And Martin, whose dad was a policeman, he was the only one of us that got caught. Yeah. Amar was there. See, he remembers. The car walked up and we were like deer in the headlights. So never forget that. I think it might have happened one night when we were all staying around someone's house, and it was New Year's Eve, and we all went out, and we used, I think the nickname for it was, we'd call it doing a run. We'd pick a place we had to get to. We'd have to avoid contact with absolutely everybody, and then we'd have to get back. And it all felt like a bit of a secret mission. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I think Amar ripped his trousers climbing over a fence when we were trying to get out. I remember this like massive rip, and he had this huge hole in his trousers. Oh man, fun times. Anyway, we've gone off topic a bit. gone off topic of volunteers a little bit. I'm sure it's very fun for people watching. But yeah, that all came about because of Mazes and Monsters and D&D.
That's it.
If you want to see Mazes and Monsters, I can't recommend it, but I'll put the link in the chat. Just it is a bit of a curio. And I don't agree with the message behind it. I think it's a pretty, it's look, you can see in the comments in the chat here, ironically, despite being anti-Dungeons and Dragons propaganda, this movie makes me want to check out Dungeons and Dragons even more than I already do. Reefer madness for tabletop gamers. I enjoyed showing this movie to my players before we start a new D&D campaign. I didn't know the slut was a D&D character. Underage drinking, no big deal, but RPGs, wow. Yeah, it's like, it's a film about people playing role-playing games. Yeah. This is the sort of thing that parents is like, oh, my kid's got into D&D. God, thank God. He's not out robbing people.
It's funny. I never really kind of got into this, this sort of role playing stuff. But there was a massive reason, really, for me not getting into it. To be honest,
was that called girls and getting married?
Yeah, going to parties and getting laid, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you have it. Yeah, volunteers and Nothing in Common. If people have seen either of these films, and you may well have done, give us your ratings for them out of 10 in the chat. But please put the name of the film. We're talking about two different movies. We've got Nothing in Common, and we've got Volunteers. Do put the name in front and what you would give it out of 10. Myself and the Inside Man give Volunteers a solid 7 out of 10. If you want to check out the Tim Thomason interview, the link is in the chat there. Amar will remember that we rented many a film out on video on the basis of Tim Thomason being in it. If it was Tim was in it, we were renting it, So and thus got to see lots of Charles Band movies. Is there anything else we want to say about Volunteers before we talk about some other random stories and ultimately wrap up at some point? I'm going to take that as a no. Or the Inside Man has possibly popped off to the toilet or lost his mic. Are you still
Sorry,
there?
mate, I got a terrible delay going on for.
Do you want to log out and log back in?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll unplug my mic and.
I've heard of them, but I don't remember them. I feel like I have, but I have zero recollection. Yeah, they're not. I mean, Volunteers is very forgettable. I think Nothing in Common will depend on your relationship with your parents, about how much you're going to personally get out of this movie. But if you've had any kind of relationship with your parents, I think there's something in it for you. It's funny, it's touching, it's the stronger of the two. 8 out of 10 for me. Nothing in Common, 7 out of 10 for Volunteers. But these are both solid career milestones, filmed one after another, pretty much, in Tom Hanks's, veritable war chest of credits, and definitely two films of his worth checking out. Now, I'm going to do another one of these about two other less well-known films of Tom Hanks. And if we go to his earlier, there's all the producer credits coming up. It's funny, you think Tom Hanks has got more than 98 acting credits, but yeah. But then most of them are really good, He's done very little stuff that's not good. So if we go back to his early career, and Inside Man, give me a shout when you're back on. But I'm just going to waffle for a bit. If we go, producer credits again. Fuck's sake, what's going on here? What's going on here? What is acting credits? It says actor here. Oh, hang on. I think I might have missed the break.
Right.
Yeah, you back?
Yes, mate. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying, I'm probably going to do another one of these, and I'm probably going to look at two other films of his. One film that almost, one film of his that is even less well known than the two that we've talked about today is Punchline. Now, I saw this at the cinema. This is very much a vehicle for both Sally Field and Tom Hanks. Sally Field is a housewife who goes to watch some stand-up comedy and decides she wants to have a crack at it.
I know this movie. Yeah, I know this movie.
Where she meets Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is a sort of self-destructive character who he's a good stand-up comedian, but he's also got a real narcissistic streak. Again, it's another sort of step towards playing those more serious roles that would come later. Yeah. I saw this at the Odeon Haymarket, the one that's now gone. But do you remember that one where you would go down the stairs and it was a very big cinema, but it was in the basement?
Yes, I do.
You'd always get films like The Mosquito Coast and the Dead Poets Society open there. So it was always the films that directors wanted to be perceived as more serious. Yeah. Well, this was also there. Steel Magnolias I saw there. Hanks and Field are brilliant in this movie. Now, I didn't like this movie that much at the time, and I know exactly why I didn't like it, because I went in expecting it to be a straight up comedy, and it was a bit it was a bit dark. But adult me watching it now, I think he'll probably view it very kindly. I really, if you haven't seen it, you should. It's got a killer ending actually, which is not an easy watch, but there are funny moments in it, but there's John Goodman, but there's a lot of dark stuff. It covers the dark side of stand-up comedy really well. And the gas station is where much of the film is set, where they're doing their sets, But I just talking about it actually makes me want to see this again. And then the other one that he did that went straight to video over here was the I'm gonna have to scroll down and get it. It came out just before he shot it, just before Volunteers, was The Man with One Red Shoe, which is a remake of a earlier film. And it's got some problems. The main problem that film has got is it's not funny. And if you're going to make a comedy, that's quite important. The gimmick of somebody mistaking him for being a secret agent wears off like very quickly. But one of the funny things is around this time, like he did Big, Punchline, he shot around the same time. I saw Big before I saw Punchline. I saw Punchline in the UK. I saw Big in the States. But around this time, he did a series of movies, none of which I liked. So The Burbs, a lot of people really like. Now, I was working at the cinema when it was on. And it's a comedy, but I remember that I almost never laughed. Now, it might be that if I go back and watch it now, I might enjoy it a bit more. Turner and Hooch, where he has a dog that basically slobbers all over him a lot. That's kind of the gag, and I just remember thinking there really wasn't much more to it than that.
I'll level. I thought it stank.
Yeah, I wasn't. No, Joe versus the Volcano, I think, is one of the worst films he's ever made.
Oh, my God.
Terrible movie. No chemistry between him and Meg Ryan.
No.
It wasn't funny. It was marketed as a comedy. And so he had this period where I was thinking, like, man, this guy's picking like really bad scripts, you know, because he'd done Dragnet was okay. Dragnet was kind of fine.
Yeah.
Again, not really as funny as it thought it was. Money Pit was fucking awesome. Money Pit is a really good movie with some very good practical gags done in a kind of Stan and Ollie type way that really work and are funny, and they're still funny now. And Bonfire of the Vanities was a massive bomb, wasn't it, at the box office?
Huge failure. You know, something that Brian De Palma has never recovered from. I think even he would admit to that. Do you know what? The funny thing is, I mean, I haven't seen it for years, and I remember really disliking it when I saw it. You know, call me a glutton for punishment, but I really want to see the film again. I really want to rewatch that.
Bonfire of the Vanities?
Bonfire of the Vanities. I mean,
I don't think I saw it all the way through. I don't think.
I mean, I am a little bit of a Tom Wolfe fan, so you know, I suppose that sort of makes a bit of a difference. But one of the reasons that I really want to give this a rewatch is because there's a wonderful book. I've mentioned it a couple of times before. And it's called The Devil's Candy. It's an absolutely warts and all, no pulled punches whatsoever making of book that was written by, I think it was the production manager, and it's one of, if not the very best book that I've ever read. That's the making of a movie. It's fantastic.
And this is written by the production manager of.
I think she was the production manager of Bonfire of the Vanities. Either that, or she was an executive producer. I'm not 100% sure what her position was. I do think she was the production manager.
I'm just looking up this. I'm looking up this book on Amazon, and I can't see it because there's a manga book with the same title. It wasn't written by Stanley Fields. No. Lauren Sharman.
That would be it, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I found it. Is still available. Behind, hang on. Is this it? No, I don't think this is it, man.
She's Jewish. Sharman is I would say is a Jewish name.
Yeah, but this is not the Macasey's Brothers Trilogy Book 2. No, that's not it.
Oh no, that's
not
it. No.
No. Devil's Candy, A Rockstar Romance. Devil's Candy, The Liberated Book. No. Okay, what's this? The Devil's Candy Bag. No. Can you search for it on Google? See if there's a.
Yeah. I'd
quite like to put the link for these things up when we mention them. But I mean, going back to Hank's Bonfire of the Vanities, I was working at the cinema when it was on, and I would watch every film that came in, and I'd normally go and see them first in London. But this one sort of thought, from the trailer, you couldn't really sort of work out what kind of movie it was. It seemed a bit all over the place.
No.
And I started watching it in the cinema, and I thought, this is dreadful. This is rubbish. Nothing's landing with this movie. It's all over the shop. And of course, at the time, you know, Hanks, Willis, and Melanie Griffith, were three of the biggest stars on the planet. I would say that Willis and Hanks had equal billing at this point. Because, you know, Die Hard's only 2 years old. He'd probably just shot Die Hard 2. Melanie Griffith's Working Girl, massive hit with Working Girl. You had Kim Cattrall was in it as well. Now, she wasn't quite as big, but she'd had big hits. And then you've got people like Saul Rubinek, Morgan Freeman, Clifton James, all big character actors in their own right. Some of whom, Morgan, of course, was only one step away from being an A-lister. Kirsten Dunst is in there. Yeah, I mean, here we go. The Devil's Candy. The controversy surrounding the film were detailed in a 1991 book called, the full title, no wonder I couldn't find it, is The Devil's Candy, The Bonfire of the Vanities Goes to Hollywood. So by Julie Salmon. So that's the book we're looking for. That's the book we're looking for. Okay, let me put that into Amazon. I'll see if I can get it. Let's do that. Devil's Candy. Here we go. See if it's still available. Looks like it is. There's quite a few different versions. God, look at this one down here. This one's 55 quid.
Wow.
Yeah, there's one that's, this is used, so you can buy a used copy.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a few different editions of it.
Yeah, I think the latest edition is its subtitle is something like An Anatomy of a Hollywood Fiasco or something to that effect.
And you have a copy. You have a copy of it, do you?
I have a copy of it. I do have a copy of it. Yeah.
You have to go. You got to lend me that book. I'm not going to pay 55 quid for it, and I've only
No
got
fear.
£7 my name at the moment. The controversy surrounding the film were detailed in the 1991 book by Julie Salmon, who was a film critic for the Wall Street Journal. De Palma granted her much access to the bonfire filming. Among other things, the book describes how De Palma had a difficult relationship with then rising star Bruce Willis, who, in the words of Salmon, was generally disliked by most of the cast and crew due to his ego. In one instance, during the filming of a scene in which Willis was Alan King, the scene in which King's character dies, Willis challenged the crew to make the whole scene move along faster, allegedly because it was very hot on the set. Although De Palma called Willis out of the set to discuss the event, the scene ended up being considerably shorter and simpler than originally intended. De Palma describes the book as very good. I let Julie Salmon see everything and she portrayed it all very accurately. But I mean, nobody realized it was going wrong when we were making it. We were already very enthusiastic about doing it. Salmon's book was re-released in 2002 with the revised title, here you go, The Devil's Candy, The Anatomy of Hollywood Fiasco. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
With additional material, including Bruce Willis's negative reaction to the book. Well, that's not the first time I heard that Willis was difficult, man. I mean, people wonder why his career started shrinking. Well, you know, if people hear you're difficult, they don't want to work with you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Sylvester Stallone had a real problem with him on the Expendables, didn't he? Or was it Expendables 2 or whatever it was?
I don't know. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah, he, when he was talking about the cast, he was interviewed about the rest of the cast, and he said, there's only one person that I really kind of didn't get on with. He said, and unfortunately, he was a big name, one of the leads, and then he names him, and he says, I don't know why the guy acts the way he does towards other people, especially towards the crew and towards the background artists.
Right.
And he said also, the guys, in his words, he said, the guy's a fucking greedy pig.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, literally called him a fucking greedy pig.
You heard it here first. I mean, I know Willis is very ill now, and it's not going to be working again. And I think it's regardless of whether that's true or not, any actor that acts that way, it's not cool.
It's not cool.
No. Going back to Hanks's career, I'd be interested to look at The One Red Shoe again, just to see if it was as terrible as I remembered it. Oh, it wasn't terrible. It was just average. But Punchline is an exceptionally good film that no one's seen. I have no interest in reviewing The Burbs, Joe versus the Volcano, Turner and Hooch. Now, A League of Their Own, I think, is an amazing film.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I really do like A League of Their Own. It was really good. Sleepless in Seattle came out around the same time as When Harry Met Sally. I think it was just after. It's a good movie.
Yeah,
Then, of
I
course,
like it actually. It's quite a sweet little film actually.
yeah. And his leap really into serious stuff is really begins in earnest with Philadelphia. Where he played the lawyer dying of AIDS, based on a true story. Forrest Gump, Apollo 13. And then he moved into producing, and I think he directed That Thing You Do, if I remember rightly.
Yes, you're right. He did.
Yeah, he did direct it. That was his directing debut. And then he was like producing From the Earth to the Moon, which is, by the way, is a very good series. And then, of course, Saving Private Ryan. Well, you know, Green Mile, Castaway. I absolutely love Castaway as a movie.
Yeah.
I really, really love that film. And funnily enough, I was talking about that film not that long ago with someone where we were both talking about our lives being at a crossroads and how we needed to make a decision. You know,
ironically, we're going to be talking about, you and I will be talking about Tom Hanks on Sunday. His episode of Band of Brothers next Sunday, which is called Crossroads.
It is. Is that the one he directed?
That's the one he directed. Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised to learn that, because that episode has definitely got like a Hanks stamp.
Yeah.
On it for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And yeah, it's no, I'm looking forward to talking about Crossroads, because of all the episodes of Band of Brothers, I think that's the one. It's not the one that I've this doesn't reflect my view on it, but I feel like it's the one that I've seen the least, because you'll whack Band of Brothers on every so often, and then often by the time you've got to episode 4, you might have to go to bed or something happens.
Yeah.
And then when you restart and you start watching the rest, sometimes something happens. So episode 5 is on, but you're kind of not really watching because you're doing something else, whatever, you know, because you've seen it before. So your focus isn't on it. So for some reason, I feel like it's the one that I've seen the least. But I mean, there's probably about 10 actors, maybe. Well, it's probably a bigger list than that, but I think I could name 10 actors right now whose careers I really admire, just in terms of body of work, and I can look at I can go through their IMDb list and say you've got, you know, if I made a list of my 100 favorite films of all time, and I go through Tom Hanks's IMDb credit list, I can tell you now that several films of his would be on there. Now, Nothing in Common might make it into the top 100. It would be definitely in the top 200 of films of all time. But Big, 100%. Big will be in there. Big would be in my top 30. League of Their Own would definitely be in the top 200. I'm not sure about Philadelphia would probably be in there. Forrest Gump, 100% would definitely be in there. Apollo 13 probably in the top 200. Saving Private Ryan would be in my top 30. Toy Story would be in my top 100. Green Mile would be in my top 100. Castaway would be in my top 100. So you're talking one actor who's got probably 7 or 8 movies in my top 100 favorite films of all time. I don't know how many other actors would have that proof that
very few, very few.
Yeah,
very few. I mean, I can't think of any that would have that volume. of a body of work that would that would be consistently in, not just yours but mine and other people's, favorite movies.
Yeah.
I think Big is one of the great movies. I think it's an absolutely wonderful film. All my kids have grown up with Big.
Yeah.
I love Big. And I anyone who hasn't seen it, and I'm sure there aren't many people that haven't seen it, but if you haven't, for Christ's sake, go out there and watch it. It's one
It's
of
timeless.
his best films. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
completely.
Absolutely timeless movie. And also I love the name of the actor's gone out my head. The guy who plays the owner of the toy company.
Yeah.
Fabulous actor. He's in
Yeah.
Scarface, and
Yeah.
he's the general in Independence Day, which funnily enough I watched yesterday. But to it's turning into a bit of a Tom Hanks love fest tonight, but
I was just gonna say that.
rightly so.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna just mention about the end scene of Castaway, and I'm gonna play it at the end of the stream, and it may well be that I'll get flagged for copyright. So, but one of the things that's great about Castaway is 90% of the film is just Tom Hanks. There's no one else.
Yeah.
And in the majority of that section of the film, in fact, in all of that section of the film, there's also no music, which often is the emotional backbone, of the piece. So it's just not in there. And so there's not many actors that could hold your attention for that length of time when their predominant acting partner is a basketball.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about this scene, and then we're going to show it. So, interesting story. I remember when I saw this film at the cinema, which is in the year 2000. It's quite a poignant moment in my life for reasons I won't bother getting into now. But my life was absolutely at a crossroads. And I remember when this scene came up at the end of the film, because he always, for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, Tom Hanks ends up, he works for Federal Express. The plane he's on, he's catching a free lift back, crashes in the ocean. He gets swept up on an island. He's there for a castaway. It's a tiny island in the middle of nowhere, and he has to survive on the island. He ends up living on it for years. And he manages a load of the packages that were on that plane will get washed up on the beach. And one package, for whatever reason, he decides not to open. The original ending, by the way, of the movie was in that package that he decides not to open. There's a satellite phone. But they thought that was, I mean, but even if there was a satellite phone, it wouldn't be charged, would it? I mean, you've got to charge these things. The package has been in the water. Would it have worked? Would it have been able to get a signal? I don't think so. So I don't, but and he decides to go and deliver that package, which is in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And he goes and drops it off at the farm, but at the farm there's no one there. So he leaves the package and he leaves a note, and he says, "This saved my life." And there's a particular logo of this kind of like pair of angel wings over the farm. And then when he comes back to this crossroads and he's trying to work out sort of where to go, this very attractive sort of cowgirl with a dog in the back of the truck pulls up and says, "Hey, you look a little lost."
Yeah, she's quite lovely. She is.
That woman is none other than country and western singer Laurie White, who is married to Chuck Cannon, who is another singer, and I have spoken to Chuck via email many times. She's a phenomenally talented woman. If you haven't checked out her music, please do so. I'm going to chuck this into the chat, actually, which is the link for her websites here. Yeah, Wilson, as Keith has pointed out, is the name of the... all you had to act opposite was Wilson for most of the movie. Laurie White... that scene really stayed with me for a whole host of reasons. And when I was doing my Diamonds in the Sky book, which was my first novel, I wanted someone to be on the cover of the book, and the person I wanted to be on the cover was Laurie White. And the reason I remembered her was because of Castaway. And we actually contacted her via this website. And we didn't know that she was literally in the final stages of fighting for her life, cancer at the time. Sadly, and the character that I wrote is based on the woman at the end of Castaway. I wrote this character in the book, and it's based on that woman. The look is exactly, as she appears. So that scene has a really special meaning for me in just a whole host of different ways. And it's a great ending. And then one of the things I really love about the ending is it's kind of left for you to almost decide the decision that Hanks's character would make in the movie. But after she passed away, I actually wrote to her husband and said, look, I just want to tell you this story about how and why I actually wanted to put your late wife on the cover of my novel. And I told him the whole story in much more detail than I'm telling you now. And he replied back to me. And let me see if I can find the email. It's not, yeah, there we go. Because the reason I wrote to him was I wanted to have his permission to dedicate I think it was the second novel I was working on by the time. Anyway, and I wanted to have his permission to dedicate the book to Laurie. And he said in reply, firstly, thank you. I want to respond, but it's after 2 a.m. and I've been in the studio all day, so I have to sleep. Can I ask you a small favor? Going forward, please call me Chuck, because I called him Mr. Cannon. Where I come from, you addressing me as Mr. Cannon indicates you were raised right. And you may not know that does not go unappreciated. But when I hear Mr. Cannon, I start looking around for my dad. I will respond as soon as I can. Honor your letter in the proper manner. Till then, thank you. Laurie was an amazing human. I'm sending some of her music below in Dropbox links. And he sent me some songs of hers that were not widely available at the time. One of which is called Bear. And man, I mean, I can't obviously play it now because, copyright and all of that. But tell you what, as soon as I heard that, I just said, I have to put this song in a film, anyway, he I kind of I copied and pasted the dedication and sort of that was going in the book, and I kind of just wanted him to approve it, which he did. And and then he wrote me this really long email talking about the background of that song, which he wrote because he was always trying to convince her that she was beautiful and she wasn't so sure, and all of this, and oh man, I've got this email up now. I don't want to read it out because it's a lot of personal stuff in there, but said how much he missed her and things, and just he said, what an honor to get to read your dedication to Laurie. Thank you for such kind words about my beloved. I so wish you could have known her. You can be sure that Laurie would have exceeded all your expectations. And you saw her in Castaway, but have heard little of her music, but she was so much more, and forgive me for boasting. But I want you to know what you sensed from her seeing a small part was well-founded. Because I got a sense that she was a really, just from this one scene, I never forgot her. I always thought, wow, who is this person? That's a great scene. Just wanted to mention that story while we're kind of on a Tom Hanks.
But
I'd love to be able to tell Tom Hanks that story one day.
Yeah, genuinely, what a lovely man he sounds. He really does sound like a wonderful person. The eloquence in which he's written that to you, I think, it really is quite beautiful.
Yeah, I actually think the last time I wrote to him, I was actually going to the States for that trip that all went wrong in 22, and I said, I'm coming. Are you anywhere near the following locations? Let's meet up. And this is Chuck. So and I'll drop. He's also got a lot of music out and so on. Really nice man. I'll pop the link in the chat for that as well. Yeah. So on that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to round out this stream, even though we weren't doing a review of Castaway. I'm going to leave our viewers with the final scene, which I'm sure I'll get copyrighted for and may well have to edit out later. But if you want to then watch it after it's been edited out, I'm going to put the link for it in the chat now, so you guys can see it if you haven't seen it. Because what I'll say now is that more than any time in my life, I feel like right now my life is at this moment where I'm this guy standing at this particular crossroads and sort of trying to work out which direction I'm going. So thanks very much for the Inside Man, for keeping me company and listening to my random stories about playing.
You're welcome. No, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, you know that. And if ever there's a time where you want me to come on, I'm more than happy to do so. You know that. But it's lovely being with you on this. And you're always good company.
Thank you very much. Also, a personal message for a friend of mine whose name begins with M. I'm not going to say anything more. I also know that you're at a crossroads yourself right now, and I know the decision is not an easy one for you. In fact, I think I'm even underselling that. I think it's very hard. But my gut feeling in my heart tells me that you're going to make the right decision. So feel the fear, do it anyway. On that note, we will be back tomorrow night with the Nielsen ratings at 10 o'clock. I've also got a special episode on Wednesday with Simon Lewis, author of The Making of a Bridge Too Far. He's coming on. Also, Inside Man, if you want to be on for that, let me know.
Amazing. I'd love to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a co-host for that. So that's at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. So you're going to be hanging out with me all week this week.
Thank you.
So thanks everyone for watching. If Rita Wilson or Tom Hanks happen to watch this, and I have tagged them both in various posts. I shot a movie in Greece, which is on my channel. It's called The Journey. And I know you own an island in Greece because you love it so much. It is my love letter to Greece, and I sent you a Blu-ray of that film to Playtone, who of course sent it back because you're not technically allowed to read books or read anything in case you make a project one day that might be a bit similar. This film is already out. I've completed it. I don't want anything from you other than your opinion, and but I know you love Greece, so that's why I sent it to you. So if I have to, I'm going to send a Blu-ray copy to your island because I know the address. But I would really love to know what you guys think of that film because I know you're big fans of Grease. In the meantime, if you're standing at a crossroads in your life yourself, and it may well be that you are, I know that you'll make the right decision. Just trust in your heart and the rest will follow.
Who knows what the tide could bring?
You look lost.
I do?
Where are you headed?
Well, I was just about to figure that out.
Well, that's 83 South. And this road here will hook you up with I-40 East. If you turn right, that'll take you to Amarillo, Flagstaff, California. And if you head back that direction, you'll find a whole lot of nothing all the way to Canada.
I got it.
All right, then. Good luck, cowboy.